everybody. Hi, guys. I want to echo what Maha said. Thank you so much for coming out on a Saturday. There's tons going on, including Dodger games and all sorts of other things. So I really, really appreciate it. I will be super brief. I am one of a massive team that got this movie made. Starting with Maha and her support of the movie and everyone at CAA, because we have not one, not two, but 3 CAA clients in this movie. And then the journey sort of culminating with Tom Ortenberg of Briarcliff Entertainment, who had the courage and the commitment to actually release this movie. So we all like to say we're gonna let the movie do the talking. One thing that Ali loves to say to people, and you'll get to talk to him a lot after the movie, is try and leave your preconceived notions about what this movie is about at the door. Forget that it's Roy Cohn and Donald Trump. Just pretend it's a guy named Ronnie and a guy named Donnie. That's how the actors went through it. But the movie is as much about a system as it is about an individual. Tell everybody, the movie opens next Friday nationwide, and we're the little engine that could. I know a lot of you have probably read a lot about what we've been through in this film, but here we are, so thank you all very much, and enjoy the film.
I'm introducing the film's filmmaker, Ali Abbasi.
Hello, I'm the moderator today. How did it feel to make this movie? How was it to prepare? Let's jump over all these questions that you've answered 600 times.
Let's do it.
What do you think? What do they think people think in Bulgaria about this?
I think they're going to be excited.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I can't wait to be shown in Bulgaria. I don't know what they're going to think. They're excited that I'm portraying somebody from my region of the world, which is a rare opportunity, and that's knowing to thank you for giving me a chance to compete for it. And having the opportunity to play this character, but yeah.
But did they at some point actually ask you to run for office in Bulgaria? Would you consider? I mean, you're blonde, you're in the good company,
I don't know.
And Bruce Johnson won,
Well, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, unfortunately. But I think I'm going to stay in my lane and continue working on things.
So, do you guys think we were fair?
Yeah.
I sense a bit of a liberal bias in the room, but thank you, CA, and thank you my wonderful team here, and Erin. It's been very tricky to get here. So I'm here to answer, and that's the judgment day. So I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not going to ask you more questions. Okay.
With a subject like Trump, it's the most explosive, I think, subject that there could be right now. How do you, when you were getting into it, the preparations and pre-production and all stuff, was it your conscious goal not to demonize or to, over, make him seem like a successful businessman, were you trying to tread that fine line between the two, or?
You can't help, can you hear me like this, or? No. I half go yes. Okay, so no means no, I think. I think that it's a little bit you have to be conscious of the judgment of history, I think, really. And I'm not saying this, lightly. I think there was a lot of times, there were a lot of, details and the scenes, and things that you usually do working on a character, you do that obviously, because it's a movie with characters, there's a dramaturgy, there's, like those first and foremost. But on top of all that, you have to be really conscious because, we're going to be judged by history, and in a way, yes, the mission statement was to humanize these characters, but also you want to be careful because you don't want to be the guy who did the movie about Hitler in 1928 and he was a bit quirky and that was it, Because, you know what I mean? Like, you want to be sort of, responsible in that way. And this being responsible doesn't necessarily mean that we have to respond in a certain political frame, but in a human way. And I think that's where the question of fairness comes in. And for me, at least, fairness is showing this guy in its complexity and issues and flaws, but also like his intelligence, all that together. So in a way, you have this extra sort of layer of, when you're doing prep and they tell you, oh, we can't afford that scene, you go like, okay, fine, I understand production, but what would the history think? So there is that layer always.
I would like to ask you about the pills that you just bring in the movie. I didn't know that it was real. I don't know if he gets mad. You're taking away his superpower just showing that.
If he gets mad?
You're taking away, in a way, his superpower. That he says, "I'm the super special." But if he is doing drugs and he's doing amphetamine, we know that that's what it does to the brain.
Yeah, I mean, there have been other presidents taking other drugs. He's not the first and the last one, I think. But again, you can read that in two different ways. You can read it like, oh, we want to like really find this thing on him and he's like stupid or whatever. You can also think of it this way. This is part of the character description, and as much as it's important to show, okay, he did some really good bets in early in New York, as much as important is to see his later developments or those different points, and in fact, like, that's really what the movie is about. It's about that transformation. That's the fun part also as a filmmaker, to see that transformation. That's also why it's fun to start with him as a stereotype guy who's sort of a bit naive, and to see him develop that way.
How much was the depiction?
How much was the depiction of Roy Cohn in the telling of this story? I know you can get stuff about Trump because there were enough lawsuits that you can figure out who he is.
Right.
But you positioned Roy Cohn as his Bengali. Okay? And I want to know if what we saw was factual, or was it a little bit of creative?
I mean, there's a bigger conversation about what's real and what's not, and what's documentary and what's fiction. I don't think we want to go there. But in terms of sort of the journalistic, groundwork, I think, Gabe Sherman, who co-wrote the script with me, is a political journalist with like extensive knowledge of, these guys. He spent, a lot of time with Mr. Trump, during at least the first time, he was running. He wrote a book about Roger Ailes. So, what we did, sort of, the whole framework of the movie is based on that journalistic approach, but also, framing it this way was also a way for us not to do a Trump biopic. This is not a Trump movie for me. This is about that specific relationship, and it is very sort of, Faustian / Shakespearean / whatever you want to say, because by the time you really see that very clear development. But as the young Donald's getting more famous and more powerful and more cocky under his wings, under Roy's wings, Roy himself is getting more sick, and there are more of these strings, like sort of his deeds are coming back to him, and he's going down. And you have that together, and that's sort of that was the nature of sort of the core of it.
I wanted to say a couple things. Yes, that was a very accurate portrayal of Roy Cohn, for sure. But there's also a documentary called Where's My Roy Cohn? If you want to watch that, it shows all about how gaslighting happens and how Trump learned to be Trump. And then the other question is that El Morocco or Doubles, the club in the beginning of the movie? Do you know? Private clubs you belong to?
I mean, that's La Club.
La Club. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be La Club.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, okay. Okay, that's okay. Thank you.
That gentleman up there, you yourself, yes. Yes.
Hi, this is a question for Maria.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ramon.
Thank you both for being here and sharing the film with us today.
Thank you.
Maria, first off, did Ivana actually sign a prenup in the movie in reality or not? Do we know?
Wait, what? Can you
Did she
please?
sign the prenup after all?
Oh, she did.
She did. Okay, and then what was your preparation for the role? How much research did you do, and how did you immerse yourself in this role?
I started watching a lot of things that I couldn't find online, and it's funny because the first book that I read that she had written, it's not been her biography, it's been something called like Glamour or Shine, and I was really impressed by the end. I think it's the last page when she's talking about Sigmund Freud being born in Czech Republic, and if you want to count on people to do the hard work, you should count on Czech people. So she's been always somehow proud of her heritage and being European, Eastern European, and I think she pretty much shown that she's been too much ahead of her time, outspoken, daring to say certain things, do certain things. So yeah, I tried to get as familiar as possible with her, and I mean, listen, she's such a complex character. So you can criticize her, you can empathize with her. There are things that I'm loving about her, and there are decisions that I personally wouldn't have done. But it's been interesting. I keep repeating the same sentence, but she's just this huge, larger than life character, and it's been interesting to imagine for a moment that I in her shoes. Yeah. I mean, I have to say that Ali actually the other day reminded me that when I first got the script, I got so excited to see his name attached because I've been a fan of your work ever since I think I first saw Border, then I went and I saw Shelley, and then I watched Holy Spider, and I was mind blown. So I was dying to just meet with him for something in the future. Truly a huge fan of your work. And then I was so anxious that I might look too young, so I did a full face of makeup, huge hair. I think I was blowing my hair for hours before that meeting that we had scheduled in New York. And it was during the day, probably around 2 p.m. So I walked out there looking like that lady.
I was no wonder Giuliani fell in love with you.
And I was like, yeah, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it fully authentic as possible and big. And I think we did it.
Yeah, and I have to say one thing I'm proud of, and it's a little thing, but still I'm proud of that. There's this strange tradition in Hollywood that every time you have an Eastern European character, like the way all these Swedish people, my Danish and Swedish friends came to Hollywood is like playing Russians, It's like you probably still think that Peter Stormare is Russian guy because he's doing like 50 Russian characters, and still like, even in acclaimed shows, it's like, I had this conversation with Craig Mazin, I think it's strange that, Chernobyl, which is a story about Soviet Union with Russian people, about Russia, is in English, So you have this, and it is a matter of opinion, obviously. But I think it was important, not only for me, not only for her, but I think for the movie, that you have that authenticity of like, which is, a way of life is not just an accent. You can't just like go to a dialect coach for 3 weeks and like learn to be an Eastern European person. There's a whole education, there's a whole culture, there's a whole background, and it's I think that's important because we took that approach to every other character. We did the same with Donald. It's like we didn't just go, oh, he's New Yorker. Okay, we talked about his dad and we talked about his mom, and I'm actually proud that we could do this. Even if like initially like a lot of these investors in the movie, they were like giving me a long list of fantastic actors here. Some of your clients here were like, okay, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with like they're great with accents. I'm like, that's the fucking problem, because that's the way we're thinking. So I'm happy that people can see this, and it's like, you know what? Nothing's gonna happen if you actually use that person from that part of the world, who's also a great actor, by the way. That's not only that. But it just adds to everything, and nobody's coming out of the movie. Everyone understands it, even if you don't speak in the perfect Victorian English. So that's a little victory in there, I think, for me at least.
And thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it because it means that.
I was wanted to ask you, I thought all the acting was phenomenal. The casting process to choose Sebastian and to choose Jeremy, I mean, there must have been many, many people who had their hat in the ring for this film.
Yeah. But I was actually talking about this. Yesterday we had another screen at DGA, and I was talking about it more with some of my colleagues, and I was like, for me, the casting process is, first of all, casting process I think is a mutual casting. As much as I go talk to Maria, that's also Maria's chance to see like if she can bear to be around me. And I think that's important because the way I work with my actors is like it is really a collaboration. I'm really dependent on these people. Like I'm not very technical, so I need them to know their shit. Come here, and I can demand stuff. That. I'm not gonna tell them I can't tell them how to get better. I can sort of stay out of their way. So that's the way I work. So, but also I think in this particular say for Donald, there's so many things, you're doing one of the most famous human beings on planet Earth, and someone who's always himself playing a character. You know what I mean? So he's an actor. You're doing an actor who's an actor, and also there's a whole physical resemblance. There's a whole aspect of a person being very polarizing. So it's not only a part, and it's not only skills, which is also, and part of my process is also like to broaden it up as much as possible. And I'm like, okay, can it be older? Can it be thinner? Can it be taller? Can it be it's like everything else that I'm thinking about. So at some point actually I was thinking, maybe there should be an actress playing Donald. Because and the reason was like I wanted to have this strange sort of offness or awkwardness that you had. Like if you look at Donald Trump's earlier footage from 70s and 80s, especially like late in 70s, he's like very uncomfortable with camera, and he has this like strange way of being. And I thought there's gonna be a lot of prosthetics anyways, so maybe that's interesting. But it turned out to be obviously that was not the case, and we tried it. But I think by trying that, you also learn something about the character you want to sort of depict. And the thing with Sebastian is, and I've said this many times, he has an uncanny ability to bring life into all these characters that are like maybe I don't know, very flawed or like a little bit douchebags or like, characters that, you sort of, you feel they are two-dimensional. And he does it in a, I don't know, for me, like Sebastian is like a minimalist. I know that it comes across, he's doing a character which is a maximalist character with a lot of gestures, with a lot of lip movements and all that. But actually, if he did 10% more, then you would realize that then would go wrong, actually. Then would be Saturday Night Live, which I don't think we are, in my opinion at least. And then also you have the sort of commitment that you need to have for this kind of project, I mean, him and I, we started talking in 2019, I think. When was it,
2022.
20, yeah, so, it's, and everyone involved in this project has been through like 5 cycles of bust and, rebuilding and all that. You're laughing. Yeah, you too. And, if you don't have an internal motivation as well, you don't do that. This is all to say that it's not like, you get the list of people and say like, okay, how about Brad? How about Leo? How about Sebastian? That's not the way it works, It needs to be much more specific and much more sort of targeted, but also that person needs to have a big motivation to do this. And I think in Sebastian's case, he really had that as well. Gentlemen.
I want to first congratulate you both on a superb job. The movie is amazing, and I wonder, have you had any response yet from the Trump camp? And I'm anticipating a suit from him. And number 2, I noticed the irony, the title of the movie is The Apprentice, but you don't have any of The Apprentice in the movie.
You mean Apprentice show?
Apprentice show, the TV.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they also tried to sue us at some point, I think. And everyone's like, we're fair game for everyone. You can also sue us if you more the merrier. I mean, they did send us, Trump camp sent us a cease and desist letter back in May when the movie came out in camp. But I don't know. I mean, I think he has become generally more disciplined this time, and also maybe he has a lot of stuff on his plate. But I do think that I will hear from him. We will hear from him when he watches the movie. So I'm looking forward to that. And I said, it would be more fun for him. It would be more fun for me to watch it together. The offer is still on the table. It's yeah. Last question, they tell me. They do this like cut your throat kind of thing. So I don't know who, lady here.
I don't have a mic, but I'll talk loudly. I was curious whether you had, when you fixed upon where the movie would end, what, you just landed in a very specific place that I could go on and say what I think, but I'm curious how you landed there.
So the whole proposition was, let's see how we ended up here in a way. Like, let's see how he became the person he is and see that transformation. So in a way, it made sense that the movie would end when Donald, the presidential candidate character, starts in a way. And I always felt like, there are points, obviously you can place that points different places, but in a way, especially after I was talking to Tony Schwartz, who, wrote Out of the Deal, I felt that for me, that was the point. That was the point that this alter ego who was competent, who was, a great businessman, who had a lot of empathy and with a lot of courage and with a lot of skills and with a lot of, knows everything. That person, when that person was born, in a way, that was for me the birth of, Mr. Trump as the politician. So I felt that, in a way, that sort of retrospect way of looking at his life and say, okay, I was a businessman, and now I want to build my myth. Now I want to actively build my myth. So I think that point always was there for me. And also, you know, another thing that we knew dramaturgically was that we want to get closure with Donald and Roy's story. So those things together became what it is up there. Thanks so much.